Welcome to BEN, the Business and Employment News Network. I'm Jonathan Funk. You're watching The Run, BEN's panel covering the 2016 presidential race. Today's panel, from right to left, Todd Seavey and Anders Kaur, Heather Woodfield and Melody Brooks. Todd is a libertarian writer and TV producer. He's the author of the forthcoming book, Libertarianism for Beginners. Anders specializes in foreign policy, including nuclear weapons security. He worked for 5 years in military intelligence concerning Europe, Asia, and Afghanistan. He holds a PhD from Harvard University. Heather was a local organizer for the Howard Dean presidential campaign, hosting the largest meetup in the country. She is co-founder of Democracy for NYC, a grassroots political action committee, and My Vote Will Count, which registered 10,000 students to vote. She holds a master's in public administration from Columbia. And Melody Brooks is director of the New Perspectives Theater Company, an award-winning multiracial ensemble committed to theater as an agent of social change. She is a member of the League of Professional Theater Women. Todd, Anders, Heather, Melody, it's great to see you all. Rand, will you turn down that music? Marco, put down that bottle. You know what happens when you drink too much water. Scott Kevin Walker, I'm telling you for the last time, a union representative is not a toy. Don't make me come back there. I will turn this campaign around. The newcomers in the Republican field all say, we're the future. Youth is strength. But where are the grown-ups? I don't mean brand loyalty like Jeb Bush, who only spent 8 years in office, which ended 8 years ago. I mean the depth and breadth of continuous experience in office that can stand against Hillary's in the general. We'll get into the individual records of Lindsey Graham and John Kasich in a moment. But first, Anders, you've called Hillary's experience her most compelling quality as a candidate. Isn't what the Republicans need to do to counter that, to put some grown-ups in charge?
Certainly, you do need experience in that position. You need executive experience and you need foreign policy experience. Foreign policy experience is one of the areas I think the U.S. really needs coming off the back of the Obama administration. So yes, we're going to look for, voters will look for a candidate and vote for a candidate in the general election who has experience with foreign policy and the economy.
And one of the hardest things to acquire outside of at least the Senate is foreign policy experience.
Absolutely, and we do see that some of the candidates on the Republican side do have some foreign policy experience that's pretty significant.
Mm-hmm. Heather, how much of a threat is it to Hillary just to simply have somebody who's got a little bit more of a resume?
I don't know that no one has the resume Hillary has. I mean, you have to count her years as First Lady, you have to count, her years as a senator, she's been the Secretary of State. No one can compete with that resume, but does the American people care about a resume? I'm not sure that's the case. I'm not sure they really care about foreign policy. I care about foreign policy, but people vote on the domestic issues. So is it going to affect the election? I'm not sure.
Do we have this backward? Do I have this backwards? Melody, do you think that the fresh faces are actually exactly what most people are going to gravitate toward? That we're tired of the same two brand names?
I don't think so. It's so hard when we're talking about Republican politics because it's all about the primary. So, every lunatic in the land can come forth and try to compete and be elected in the primary. We know they won't, and they'll all get a gig on Fox News. And then it gets, winnowed down to a couple of people that might actually be taken seriously. So it also, it depends on what the, quote, establishment wants. I mean, I think there is this disgruntledness on the far right that says that the establishment still had too much clout in the last election, that Mitt Romney was not the candidate they really wanted. Mm-hmm. So I can't predict. I don't feel like I could predict at all.
I think back to that 3 a.m. phone call ad that Hillary ran against Obama clearly did not resonate enough to carry her in her own primary. Do we think that that'll have a little bit more of an effect for some of the Republican contenders? Todd, any thoughts?
Well, let's see. First of all, I should say I think if we're talking about Lindsey Graham, I think he's actually one of those cases, sort of like our own state's former Governor Pataki, where the chattering classes might notice him. I don't think most Americans care.
Right.
So he thinks he's going to shake up the race and make a difference. I think he'll barely register. Isn't going to resonate in the primaries with most people.
Okay. Older demographics are scaling much more rapidly. They're not only a larger proportion of the electorate, they're also a larger proportion of those who actually come out and vote. Are they going to say, oh, I like that nice young Marco Rubio boy, or are they going to gravitate towards somebody more like themselves?
I think Heather's absolutely correct that most people vote on the domestic issues. And I don't know what some of these youngsters have to show for themselves, and domestically either. I mean, Marco Rubio is a senator, so he doesn't have a governorship
Right.
under his belt where he can point to things he's actually done to improve people's lives here, domestically. I think people are concerned about as people age, they're concerned about how they're going to survive, how they're going to live. So issues of Social Security and Medicare, they really are, the core issues for the older electorate.
The latest polls actually do say that domestic issues, the economy, jobs, will be the deciding factor in these elections. I do think, though, that given the foreign policy chaos, it will have a serious effect as well.
Okay, we'll be right back with Senator Lindsey Graham's policies next on The Run.